what my parents taught me was to be loving and gracious and kind and understanding to everyone. Um,
Another thing that you kind of touched on, are you a believer? You mentioned, you said something about God.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, how do you, I am starting to become more, I don't want to say religious, but
Okay.
I really do believe that God and the universe has his purpose, and I believe he's gifted me with certain things.
Yeah.
And, and so can you touch a little bit about
Yeah.
how you're kind of,
Most definitely. Man.
I want to learn.
Yeah. So, to anybody who's listening to this or going to listen to this, let me just disclaimer this and preface this. I never put my faith on anyone. And I say that because I have friends who are non-believers,
Yeah.
agnostic, atheist, Muslim, you name it. I have friends that are that. And growing up with a father who is Muslim and a mother who is Baptist, you can understand why my parents are separated. All right.
Yeah.
I'm real. None of this stuff is off limits to me. I'm just going to be real.
Yeah.
There's a internal conflict. But what my parents taught me was to be loving and gracious and kind and understanding to everyone. And I could sit here and be like, because I am a believer, I believe the way to, and I'm not going to get too deep, heaven, hell is through, being a believer of Christ and accepting that he died for you. I can share the gospel with you. All right. However, growing up, my father was a part of what's called an interfaith federation in the Northwest Indiana and Chicagoland area. And this group was made up of all sorts of folks. You had your business owners, you had your community folk, you had your community leaders, your everyday citizen, you had your, again, Muslim, Christian, you name it, believer, non-believer, whatever, they were involved. And the whole purpose of this group was to help build up the community, help focus on making where folks lived, worked, and played better. And so for me growing up, I had a sense of respect for everyone. And my father told me when I was younger, he said, D, no matter what you do, I need you to arrive at that decision intelligently. Arrive at your belief intelligently, not just because I'm your father and not because your mom's your mom and you go to church with her, you go to the mosque with me. And growing up, I knew all the prayers in Arabic. And then on Sunday, I'm in church with my mom. I'm in the choir. I'm doing the plays. I'm singing. I'm doing all of that. And so, but it gave me an appreciation. And I think that's also a part of what has allowed me to be authentic and to be able to adapt as well in different situations. But what my father said to me with arriving at a decision intelligently, that led me to Christianity. And that I came at a decision all on my own when I became older. And I will say this to kind of transition so you know how I am and who I am. Part of the reason I respond the way I respond, the way I love, the way I teach and tactfully say things, discerningly say things, it is because of that belief in Christ for me personally. And there's a quote that I actually live by, and I had to believe it because I don't have a college degree. And that quote is, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. And I've mentioned that before, but I haven't really gone in depth with people about that before. And when you think about the Bible and the lessons that you learn and the teachings of Christ and the teachings of the apostles, and when you look at that and you see how they loved people, you see how they were tactful, you see how they were discerning, you see how they were at fault, they were not perfect, they were persistent. You see where Christ was was interacting with everyone. He challenged everyone. He taught everyone. But he also would flip a table if needed. And that's for me, that kindness, that gentleness, that faithfulness, that self-control, that discipline. But at the same time, don't test me. And so it's all of that. And that, I kid you not, has allowed me to be able to have difficult conversations. It's allowed me to shut up and listen. It's allowed me to show that, you know what, integrity doesn't always mean, or the ethical thing doesn't mean that you're always right. It means when you F up, you own up to it. And so it's taught me so much. So when folks hear me say a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education, I truly have to believe that. And that is no knock against someone that spent $100,000 on sitting in class to learn certain things, to go out there and make a living and impact the community. It doesn't take away from them. For me, it just enhances me in my walk of life, in the path that I chose. And so, yeah, man, that Christianity and believing that has taught me how to speak to people. It has taught me how to treat people. It's taught me how to shut up and listen. It has taught me how to be kind. And it has also taught me how not to be a pushover.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So is that something that you instill or teach your kids as well then? Or how is it? Is it something that you guys go every Sunday to church and stuff like that? Or how did...
So, growing up, especially my older boys, I mean, because I taught in the church and I led community groups. I was in sports ministry, children's ministry. Our house was open 24/7 to everybody. They've had an opportunity to grow up and see that. My two younger ones, they're actually at a Christian school, a private school. My oldest, that I helped raise, my fourth, my bonus son, he's at Iowa now. And then I have one at Valley High School. But, you know, we have so many great discussions about Christianity, about belief. My son at Valley, probably about a week and a half back, he comes home and we're just riding. We're going to pick up his little bros. And he's like, Dad, I got into a conversation today with this guy. He's a non-believer. He's atheist. And we were having a really great discussion. And he was asking me all these questions. And I was able to tell him some of the reasons why I believe what I believe. And it was really cool. He was like, we just had so much respect. And then he's like, then there's these girls over here and they're laughing at us. I was like, they're laughing because y'all are having an in-depth conversation about, you know, life. And he's like, he's like, but it didn't bother us. And we just kept going. And I'm like, that's really cool. That's special. And it's great to have your kids, because you do want your kids to grow up, and they will grow up and make their own decision. Definitely. I grew up, and my mom and dad didn't know that when I went off to audio engineering production school, they didn't know that I was traveling 45 minutes to go to church. I never told them that. They didn't know when I moved down to Georgia and was building a business down there that I was going to church. They didn't know until my mom saw me getting baptized. Oh, wow. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. She heard me talking about Christ. She saw changes in my life, but I don't know if she knew it wasn't what she did growing up. It was I had to make that decision for myself. And so my boys, getting them to that point where they can grow up and be kind, they can be gracious, they can be faithful, they can persevere, they can do all of these things that we're called to do. I would love for them to follow that. And so, yeah, I'm very intentional in instilling and having those conversations. But the big thing is I don't try to have all those discussions all at once. Correct. Because you can't. And I look at it as like little clips, you know, little movie reels or clips. One day, all those clips are going to add up into one big reel. And that's what you can hope for. So
how is it that you, instill faith, or like still not give up on faith in God and those beliefs when the world it can be a tough place, you know, and with the internet and with, you know, social media and just everything changing so rapidly. How do you kind of instill that with you and then with your kids to just kind of have that, you know, not give up?
Yeah. Real conversation. It's real. You just got to let folks know There is no easy way. We don't have all the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just simply don't. Life is hell. There's the good, there's the unfortunate,
Yeah.
and I always say the what the hell.
Yeah.
And it's real. And if you are a person that try to make sense out of everything
Yeah.
and try to say this world is perfect and you look through the world through rose-colored glasses, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult because you got to be very real. And that's part of uptraining your kids. Like you got to show them the good, bad, and the ugly. That's why some days I'm like, I'm about to drop y'all in the middle of the hood right now. Y'all have been too comfortable. Survival skills are about to kick in. Because you have to prepare them for the ugly. The world is ugly. And the truth of it is people make bad decisions and there's consequence for bad decisions.
For sure.
Good people go through bad things.
For sure.
I've made very difficult decisions and bad decisions that have led to difficult outcomes. And I have to live up to that. I have to own up to that. I can't blame it and say, okay, God, how could you allow this to happen? No, I have a choice and I chose to do something stupid. There's bad people. There's bad things. And that's the reality of what we live in. And a part of that is accountability. A part of that is ownership. And that's in every walk of life. If you go through life and you make bad decisions and you try to put things off on people, where's the accountability? And I talk about that through life, through business, through finances, through relationships. When you are an adult and you act as an adult and you make certain decisions, there's going to be good, bad, or uncertain things that come from that. But no matter what, there is a consequence to everything that we do in life, period. Definitely. And so we just keep it real. We talk about everything, man. They see everything. We don't hold anything back. I definitely don't hold anything back.
Wow.
The boys' moms are probably a little bit more cautious. Of course, when you're younger, you don't want to say too much to your kids. But there comes a time where you just got to be like, hey, this is life. This is real. And this is where we're at.
So have you found, and you may have already answered this already, but your purpose in life, has D'Angelo been at that point where I know you love to serve others and things of that sort, but have you found your purpose quite yet? Or is it a day-to-day basis, a yearly thing for you? What is your purpose, or have
that's a difficult question. That one is tough because I have found purpose. Okay. First and foremost, my greatest purpose is going to always be for me being that father and being a believer and sharing my faith when I have the opportunities, period. I think that is the greatest thing you can do. Let's talk about the kingdom, one. And then two is right now where I'm at in my life is my boys. I was married and divorced, and that's something as well that I talk to my boys about. Relationships matter, and how you handle those relationships matter, and it's really important. And so for me, my purpose is my boys, and community and the kingdom and all, and just kind of all of that in one. But I do believe your purpose can change at different points in time in your life.
Agreed.
And so for me right now, I had to jump out and kind of to come full circle a little bit. The reason why I jumped into the corporate world was I had my son, Aman, who's 16. I had him when I was young. And then kind of fast forward now, I jumped out of that corporate space so I can build for him and for his brothers. And I'm like, hey, I didn't jump into this to make a couple $100,000 or to get large bonuses every year. That's nice. Yeah. But I did this so I can build something greater for them, long lasting. When you look around and the people you're around, someone takes over a company that's worth billions, and his father left that for him and built that for him. that's cool. That's great. I don't want to have to work that hard to make someone else more and more money when I can work that hard for my boy. If I'm going to have to do it anyway, I might as well do it for my boys and build something greater for them.
Yeah.
And that's my thought process behind why I left the corporate space. And again, not saying I won't ever jump back into it or that I'm against it.
Yeah.
But now I have a different view. So my purpose is a little bit different. Leaving actually helped clarify my purpose a little bit more. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. But leaving has really sharpened some things for me of how I need to do things and where I need to be. And so, yeah, man, my purpose has changed a little bit, but it is always going to be for the kingdom. It's always going to be for my boys and for the community, and my family in general, you know, so kingdom, family, and in the community.
For sure.
And I think with those three things, you can't go wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, D'Angelo.
Yes, sir.
Transitioning into your kids.
Oh, yeah.
What are some struggles that you face raising, 3 kids? Or I apologize, 5. But what are some struggles that you kind of go through on a day-to-day basis or even yearly basis? What are some things that?
One of the big ones, man, I'm just going to speak about family. Blending a family is very difficult.
Yeah.
It takes everyone to be on board.
Definitely.
And when you're not, you feel it. The biggest thing that I always tell folks is kids want love, period.
Yeah.
Love, discipline, consistency, understanding, all of those things. I'm not, no knock against anyone who focuses on the material things and giving their kids all the extra and fine things. That's all fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, none of that crap matters, man.
It doesn't.
When you have to discipline your kids, you don't think about, oh shoot, I should have gotten my kid this PS5. When you have to work with your children on patience, you're not thinking, oh man, let me do X, Y, and Z for them. You're finding out how to show them patience, how to help put them in positions where they can practice patience. The same with us. And so for me, man, the struggle is always, how can you show your kids the things that are going to impact them long term and how to be a great person long term while not trying to show them perfection.
Yeah.
Showing them being authentic. And it kind of comes back down to conversation, talking to them about your mistakes and being okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is from a place of weakness. And if for parents, you always want to show strength.
Yeah.
You want to show, I got this. You want to show I'm the man or I'm the one. No, cut that crap out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Showing them how to be vulnerable in your mistakes and how to have grace and mercy, and all of that plays part from a biblical perspective for me and from a real life. And growing up, that's the big. So my older boys are not allowed to date. All right, you're not allowed to date until you're 18.
Okay.
All right. And so having, an older kid that's at Iowa, you're on your own. You really are on your own there. But then having a 16-year-old and having him try to explain to a young lady like, hey, my dad's crazy. He doesn't allow me to date. We can go to a dance, but don't expect more outside of this dance, you know. But it's for protection.
Oh, okay.
I talked to him about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's because of my life and what I went through and what I experienced. And the different relationships that I had and the hurt that came from it. And I get to talk about that. I get to talk about the protection. When you think about discipline, and some people have different ways to discipline their children. Growing up, you may have to go get that switch. You may get a stitching cord. You may get a belt. It's real. Kids, again, they're not from where I'm from. So I can't come with those same. But discipline and correction. So those are the things that just every parent struggles with trying to find that balance of, I want my kids to be stronger. I want them to be better. I want them to be smarter. I want them to be healthier.
Yeah.
And finding that vulnerability piece to where later on, if they challenge you, they're not, well, you did this and you went through this, because, you know.
Yeah, you touched on something that really touches me, at least, is vulnerability, right? It's looked upon as a weakness, but I find it as actually a strength.
Yeah.
If you're able to open up to people and be vulnerable, it's a skill that not a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And I figured out that for me as a person, I actually enjoy when it's the right person. I'm able to open up and be vulnerable. But then also, like you said, right, there's reasons why I do certain things to this day. Like
Yeah.
for me, I started jujitsu for a year,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like to realize and know how to fight, and just because I played basketball, football, and all those other sports, right? I want to be able to show that, hey, you can still be a hard dude, but still be vulnerable.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
it's a hard combination to kind of mesh both into, especially as a man, right?
Yes.
Because not a lot of people like to open up and talk about your feelings or what you're going through. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so like
absolutely.
when you talk about vulnerability, that's such a interesting topic because a lot of people struggle with that.
That it's true. And especially in communities of color, you have to be hard. You have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
No one may ever tell you that.
Yeah.
You may just feel it.
Yeah.
You may see it from your boys. You may see it in the movies.
Yeah.
You may see it from, you may hear it from different stories from back in the day.
Yeah.
Movies, whatever it may be, music. And you're just like, nah, I gotta be this way. You know what I mean? I'm too cool.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
fool, shut up.
Because what's funny is like you're so spot on with that, because I have boys, like my boys,
Yeah.
right? They're like probably about 5 to 6 of them that I'm probably the most vulnerable person, right? Like when it talks about feelings and stuff like that. But like when we're around each other, we're cracking jokes and we're never talking about feelings, but like at the end of the day, when something happens, right? A family member passes away, something traumatic happens. They will always be there, and they will always, they might not get into nitty gritty because they didn't necessarily, some people didn't grow up talking about the feelings.
Yeah.
And so I think it can be challenging for a lot of men, if
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
And again, this goes back to what I was talking about, that emotional intelligence and emotional agility and all of that.
Yeah.
There's a book, Emotional Agility. Check it out. Susan David. Super dope. But growing up, my pops, he always had me reading different things. And he had me listening to different tapes and worked on my mindset a lot. And that really, really matters. And we would have really great in-depth conversations. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We would have conversations that you probably should be having with an adult. And that really helped shape my mindset, and it helped shape me. Now, one of the things that I did not have control over was my emotions. And it took a while. So becoming a believer actually helped me with this. And then as I got older, I got into counseling, because I do believe speaking to someone and having therapy is very key. It helps with that emotional intelligence on how to help your children, corporate, your girl, whoever, that emotional intelligence is a benefit to everybody around you.
For sure.
And so, but that taught me, going to therapy, becoming a believer, and really resting in my emotions taught me how to respond versus how to react. My emotions became an indicator of how am I supposed to respond in this moment. So when someone is pressing me, I'm not about to react. That's how come I could say earlier, I didn't choke him out 27 times. I didn't respond. I didn't react.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait, and I'm going to respond better later. Or when my kids do something and they know, hey, I've already asked you once, and that was probably too much because you already know my standard. I'm going to respond better versus react. And so these, that emotional piece for me, or where it was a huge indicator on how I should start to respond. So, And it also impacted me with being able to connect with people and just getting and meeting people where they are at.
Yeah.
And that for me is so much more valuable than trying to shove a story down someone's throat or shove, well, this happened to me, or let me tell you about, just meet people where they are at. So if
Yeah.
someone's angry, all right, meet them where they're at. And I don't mean with force.
Yep.
Meet them where they're at so you can help bring them down. You can help calm them. And then you'll have a chance to be able to reach them and talk to them more. Meet a person when they're sad and where they're at. Doesn't mean that you have to become sad, but
Yeah.
you can meet them where, meet a person when they're overjoyed and where they're at. You may not have that same joy because what they're experiencing is not a direct benefit to you. You
Yeah.
can still meet them where they're at. And so when people learn to realize that my emotion is an indicator for something more, then that's when you really start to see growth in your life and you
sure.
really start to impact the people around you.
sure.
So when my kids are sad or angry or frustrated, there's something more going on. It's not, I just told Cruz to stop hitting me 7 times, so I punched him. No.
Yeah.
There's a lot that happened before that. Let's talk through that.
Yeah.
We'll get to the punch later, but let's deal with all this other stuff here first.
For sure.
And so, man, it's good to be, I think, emotionally aware at the end of the day.
Gotcha. No, that's special. So another thing I want to transition and talk to you about is what are some struggles you had growing up for yourself as a minority? What are some things that you can kind of tell
Oh
us
my
about?
gosh. Struggles. All right. So struggles or struggles as a minority. Which one do you want? Because we can talk about both.
Just let's talk about struggles growing up as a minority.
All right.
Yeah. I'll kind of like to hear about that.
Let's go there, man. So I made the comment earlier, growing up in Gary, 98% black city. You know, that was real for me. It was life. It was fun. It was, I'm around my people.
Yeah.
I don't know anything different.
Yeah.
I see the good, bad, and the ugly, and it's not because of the race of people. They're just people. These are my people.
Yeah.
Then I think, and I knew the difference between black, white, Hispanic, Asian. I knew all of that.
Yeah.
But you just don't see it as frequently because you're not around it.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Iowa, 97, 98% white. And that struggle was real. Talk about shell shock.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I'm like, yo, there's an Asian, but only Asian you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be funny right now.
Yeah.
It's Chinese.
Oh,
Because all you
yeah.
hear growing up is
Yeah.
Chinese food.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know what the heck Bosnia was.
Oh, I
but
see.
at the time I moved here,
Yeah.
they are migrating here
Yeah.
because of the war. Bosnians? What the heck are Bosnians? They just
Yeah.
look fair complected.
Yeah, definitely.
And they speak a different language.
Yep.
Indian? What do you mean? So
Yeah.
I'm seeing all these different races and I'm
Yeah.
seeing, oh, Filipino. Oh, there's Korean.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm just like, this is freaking crazy. And then insert Africans. I didn't see no Africans in Gary. And so now I see these Africans and I'm like,
Mind blown?
these are my people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is real.
Yeah. Yep.
To something that seems so small to other people or just dismissive because they were already here in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I didn't have that in Gary. So coming here, and one of the very first things I realized was I'm not going to fit in with people here. I was a basketball player. So coming from where I'm from and playing AAU, I always led my teams in scoring. I was the one of the top guys. Blah blah blah. Coming here, all of a sudden I had to fit in, and I'm with white boys. I'm not fitting in properly. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
First off, I'm one of the few blacks, and I definitely ain't all of a sudden jumping in their group that they have been together 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
And then I am at a high school, Johnston High School,
Yep.
where it's 99% white. And, you know, I, I talk about this in my keynote. I talk about, hey, there's probably 5 or 6 of us. 3 or 4 of them didn't even know they were black. You know what I mean? And so I'm just being real. And I'm seeing, again, Asians and Hispanics and Bosnian. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. And what I'll never forget. So I'm working on a book. I've been working with a writer out of San Diego for a few years.
Yeah.
And she was telling me, she was saying, D, do not put this in a book. Do not put this in a book. I'm like, this is going in the book. But I don't think it made the book.
Yeah.
She won. But I'll tell you the story. I was at the back of the school bus, and we had I think we were coming from Fort Dodge. And it was one of the first games where I was going to play varsity, and this guy that was supposedly my friend, he stands up at the back of the bus and he goes, D'Angelo, I got a joke. And I'm like, all right, let me hear the joke. Let me hear the joke. Now, I'm not thinking it's going to be the joke that's coming. It was a racist joke. Now, this is supposed to be my friend.
Oh.
And he goes, what does, and for everyone listening to this, I'm saying this for a reason, because think about how I felt in a moment. I'm surrounded by all these big white boys at the back of a bus, the irony. And he goes, what does a black man and an apple have in common? And I go, what? He said, they both look good hanging from a tree.
Wow.
Now, this was said to me. So I come from a space where I never had to deal with the racism. I never into that moment from a supposed friend and brother on a basketball team who's supposed to fight with you makes that comment to me.
Wow.
And it was that moment that I think I realized I had a lot of restraint. One, I'm not going to fight a bunch of guys at the back of the bus. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
2, I'm going to be the instigator no matter what. But 3, it showed them, you can't rattle me.
Wow.
I am who I am. All right. You can use that language. You can use the N-word. You can do all of that. None of that matters to me. It's not going to rattle me because I am who I am. I am confident in who I am. And I had those same experiences in this corporate space in the 2000s, 2010s. In this corporate space, I've had people call me the N-word and chant that over the phone. I've had people try to attack me physically. So when it doesn't move me. I've had police officers going into Johnston pull my friends over and over because I'm in the passenger seat with them. I've been at restaurants where they make me pay for my food when I'm with 20 plus people and I'm the only black person. I've been in spaces where I'm in front of the home that I own, several $100,000 home, and I have police officers stop me and say, hey, is this your home? Is this your car? Because it's a nice car and a nice home. None of that changes me though. I don't look at white folks differently. I look at that person differently and who said something. I don't look at police officers differently. I look at that police officer differently. I respect your race. I respect you as a person. I respect you as an officer. I just may not respect that person anymore. And so for me, I have story after story after story. In Gary, I was 19. I'll tell you this story. I don't think I've ever told anyone this story. I was 19. I had just left the real estate industry and I became an independent contractor, and I was on my way to a client's house and I was in a brand new, probably a $50,000 car at the time. I'm 19 years old, 400 horsepower. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fly, right? Spent way too much money. All right.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I turned the corner and my tires, it was hot outside. So your tires squeal a little bit. I didn't peel out. I didn't have a speeding ticket. None of that. And the police officer pulls me over, 2 white cops pull me over, and they say, hey, D, you were, sure, paraphrasing, you were pilling out, or you were blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So I had a camera with me because I had a digital camera with me because you take pictures of property sometimes, et cetera. And so I got out and I took pictures of my tires. I took pictures of the speed limit sign, took pictures of I was across from a college. I said, so when I went, and the officer told me, don't sign it. You don't have to sign it. He could have arrested me. I'm not an idiot. So I go to court and I'm in front of this judge, and the first words out of my mouth, I was on my way to a client house, and the judge stopped and said, what do you mean you're on your way to a client's house? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you're 19. I was like, yeah. And I told him what I did. Yeah. And he was like, if you don't show up in my courtroom in the next 6 months, this is just thrown out. I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to do anything. But I took pictures, and I told him beforehand, I had pictures. I took pictures of the speed limit, my tires. There's no modifications in my car, yada, yada, yada. Yep. And I'll never forget them throwing that out. And the attorneys came out afterwards and were like, hey, that was a really good job of you gathering information and presenting this and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that was really cool. But it shouldn't have never happened. Yeah. And so a lot of the things that have happened to me growing up, just being a young black man, people seeing that, it didn't matter if I was in a suit when they did that. It didn't matter if I was in a suit. It didn't matter if I'm in a corporate space. I'm going to have folks attack me because of my race. And I've seen that, and I've known that. It doesn't matter if I'm in school. They're going to attack me because of my race, but I don't pay attention to it. I keep moving forward. And I something that I didn't mention earlier, when I had that conversation with that executive, and he was threatening the livelihood of someone on my team, later on, a question was asked to a senior manager, and that senior manager was asked from the highest person in the company. I'll just say that and this is no knock. It was, do you think we have a lawsuit on our hands? Because what they saw was this early 30s black man as a VP, a managing VP in a high net worth area. And then you have this other person who is over a lot more. I'll just say that because I want to be respectful, because all is well. All is well. Yeah. And they said, do we have a lawsuit on our hands? And the senior VP said, you don't know D'Angelo. He knows that this person is just not a good manager, and they need to be better. He doesn't care that they're white. And that was huge for me, because my entire career, I'm very mindful of what I say. I can fight my own battles, but it matters what I say and how I do it, because I don't want to be known as a person that is inciting issues or causing issues. I shouldn't have to move like that, but I have to move like that. And I understand that. So growing up, and that's a part of me knowing who I am and being okay with that. I'm okay with standing up for myself, but I'm also okay with not having to start a fire if I don't have to. And so, I see it. I know it. I experience it, but it doesn't change the way I treat people. It doesn't make me angry. I'm not bitter. I don't look at anyone of another race and say, you treated me like, no, they didn't. That person doesn't know me. So that person deserves my respect. That person deserves me to be tactful and kind and discerning towards them. That person does not deserve for me to be an a-hole towards them because of something that someone else has done to me. For sure. And so, growing up, I've experienced a whole lot. I got a lot of stories, man.
No, I appreciate you giving me that background. That's so insightful, just because, I'm a minority myself, and I've had my own struggles too. Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about your book. Yeah. Oh shoot. Are you an upcoming author? What's the book about? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Listen, first off, I'm trying to crush it. Y'all about a book. It's gonna be a New York Times bestseller. No, hopefully. Yeah. I'm not doing it for that reason. Tell you the truth, man. Yeah. So disclaimer. The reason I wrote the book is because I wanted to. First off, to connect with so many people. When you write a book or you start a business or anything to that nature, people always say, find your audience. Who are you trying to connect? I'm trying to connect with everybody. All right. I'm trying to sell to everybody. Yes, I said it. And the reason is is because, man, I come from Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
It's the hood. I
Yep.
come from a home that's broken.
Yeah.
My parents are divorced. I come from my own relationship that is broken. I had a child young out of wedlock, and I had custody of my son. And that is different. I don't have a college degree or 4-year education. I can go on and on and on. And the reason I mention all of that is because I don't take a position of woe me. I'm not saying that it's not difficult for people, because it is hell out here for people who don't have a fair or equitable starting point.
I agree.
But my starting point, it was not equitable because I didn't have an education. I didn't have certain skill sets. And so I really focus on this book to talk about the soft skills that were needed to really get to where I was at. I talk about my upbringing that really motivates me. I did one interview and one podcast, and the interviewer asked me and said, hey, these things oftentimes hold people back. And I said, no, these things is the reason it pushed me forward. And it pushed me forward because I never looked at any of all those things as an issue. My parents' issues were their issues. Me having a kid young, that's my issue, but it doesn't mean that I can't be successful. It was all a mindset. So the reason I was able to push forward and to keep growing is because I wanted to deliver not just for myself, but for my son, for something bigger than me. And when we all know, when there is something that moves us beyond just us, it gives you a different drive. It gives you a different hunger. And so for me, I had that drive. I had that hunger. And so this book is it's part autobiography, but it also hits on those skill sets that's needed that we've been talking about: adaptability, change management, authenticity, psychological safety. All of these things that folks don't look at initially when you go to school and you're in college and you're thinking about that degree: emotional agility, emotional intelligence. These are the reasons, along with the grace of God and my mentors, that I am where I am. And I was able to get to where I was. And I was just warming up, man. I really was. And I tell people that, like, I was just getting started. And I'm in my late 30s now. And I feel like I'm getting even better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I wanted people in this book to be able to see that, to be able to connect. This isn't a book about finances. And the book is called Young, Black, and Banking It. And I'm getting older, so I got to hurry up and release this. But it's not about finances. I was like, first off, no one ever wants to read a book about finances, ever.
No.
So how can I make it real? So we talk about the real. We talk about my struggles growing up. You're going to hear the stories about me being shot at when I was younger. You're going to hear about the stories about my mom struggling because her and my dad aren't talking and connecting. When my dad makes great money, it could have been like, oh, here's $1,000, here, go get some food, here, go do this. You're going to hear about the stories of abuse and the things that I saw, the things that I went through, the things that I experienced. And the reason is because so many people have that starting point that they think, oh, shoot, I'm starting behind the 8 ball because this happened to me. And I'm like, yo, we can focus on that or we can focus on this. And while we're at it, let's have some people that are for us. Let's connect with them. And then let's grow these type of skill sets so you can go and be better for yourself and for the people around you.
Definitely.
And so that's what the book is about, man. And it's called Young, Black, and Banking It. And it will have a podcast that will come out and couple that as well. So,
that's special, man. I think for all the young folks listening, if they have a guide, a book that is relatable, where they're looking for those answers, and, when I think a lot of people, when they're starting out their career, they struggle with finding mentors and all those things. And so hopefully your book can provide some of that guidance.
Absolutely.
But I really do think too, when you're looking for a mentor, I don't know if you look at it the same way as it's more of a friendship more than it is like because it's always, for me at least, it's always been a two-way street. It's not always been this person's going to help me get to where I want to be. It's always just, it's an easygoing relationship. So has that has that kind of been your relationships with some of the mentors that you've met, or is it how's that been?
You know, sometimes, and I don't think I appreciated my early mentors the way that I should have.
Yeah,
It didn't really hit me until later on how valuable those moments actually were.
Yeah,
It's almost like anything, you can take it for granted.
you can definitely.
My first mentor, so jumping back into the banking, my first real mentor, the black brother I called Boltap Fly, he always inspired me and said, you can be here.
Yeah.
And it came full circle because I had a manager within that same institution that later told me, you're going to go further than he ever went. And I did. Wow. And it was a blessing.
Yeah.
But me seeing him suited and booted,
Yeah,
as I like to call it, and him just inspiring me, saying, you can be here, you can do this, what are you doing, how's school looking, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Every time I saw him was huge.
Yeah.
But I had another mentor. He was an older white guy, and he was worth 160 million, I think, at the time, from the South. No reason for us to ever cross paths. And he taught me the value of helping and serving people.
Yep.
And he taught me, also taught me the value of, I'm just going to say it because it's a fun story. We went on a trip once, again, from Gary. I'm back in Indiana at the time. I'm back in Gary.
Yep.
And we went to Aspen.
Uh-huh.
I don't belong in Aspen, first and foremost. I will never go back to Aspen ever in my life. I can't ski, I can't snowboard, and I'm not tipping up anybody enough to drive me around in a Lexus. Not happening. But we walk into this restaurant, and I look at the menu, and I'm like, oh, crap. Like, I can't, there's no, like, price on this menu. And I'm like, what this costs? And they all start laughing at me. We got you covered just because you asked that question.
Yeah.
Like, we know you can't afford this.
Yeah.
But those are, again, you never know what your mentor is. I say that because you never know what your mentor is going to teach you.
Definitely.
Just those little, that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You walk into a place, you sit down, you see a menu, you don't ask what the price is if it's not on there.
Yeah.
You just know you better have a credit card on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So mentors teach you so much about life.
They do.
But early on, I didn't know what questions I should have been asking.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I had an Asian mentor, and his thing was D. He called me DJ. He said, you focus on the community.
Yeah.
You focus on your team.
Yeah.
And you focus on your institution. You do that, you'll have an unbelievable career.
For sure.
You'll never, ever question anything. And it was a servant mindset. It was servant attitude.
Yep.
And so, I think with mentorship, it should be two-way.
Yeah.
I'm being mentored right now by a CEO of a company, and it's really great to see him behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, what gaps can we help you? What's the gaps? Let me help you fill them.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to see me do better.
Yeah.
And in return, I'm asking him like, hey, have you ever experienced this? And what did this look like? Now, I'm older, I'm a bit wiser. So I'm able to understand and have those questions ready and prepared to truly maximize a mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah.
Now, if it's an executive coach,
Yep.
I think executive coach
different.
is a little bit different.
Yeah,
You can be, you're paying them first and foremost. I paid 2 of them.
Yeah.
And you can ask a little bit more, hey, I need this to be a little bit more me focused. I'm going to be selfish right now.
Yep.
But on the flip side, you also got to remember they have lived and they have experience, and they're not just drawn from a textbook. They're drawn from their life experience.
Exactly.
And so at the end of the day, even that is still, you want it to be more two-way. So
yeah, definitely.
that mentor relationship, you respect it and appreciate it when you're looking at it from a different perspective when you're older.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And like you said, I guess maybe I said that a little bit wrong. Some of my mentors where I can call like and have more of a relationship with, but there's some that are older, kind of like that took you out to the restaurant, right? That are more like if you're paying them, or if they're like been through more life experiences, those are more kind of like a coaching, and that's okay, right? Like, but some of my experiences are the best relationships that I had is more of like, they're kind of more similar in age, or maybe 10, 15 years, right? But if they're like a lot older, they're a CEO of a company or whatever, those are the individuals that I may reach out to if I couldn't find a job,
Yeah,
or like,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
have a network of people that they can just be like, hey, this guy's good.
Hire 'em.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hire him, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
it depends on the person.
and I feel that. See,
Yeah,
my
yep.
issue is I was young.
Yeah, yep. Yep.
I was simply young.
Yep.
And so I didn't really have anyone my age.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone around me who I've either have managed
Mm-hmm.
or worked alongside that were in a role that was significant, they were always much older, 20, 30 years older than me.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
what I mean? People my age, again, early 30s, the roles that I were in, they don't see into their 40s,
Yeah.
their mid 40s, early 50s.
Yep.
So I was extremely blessed, and I'm grateful for that because it taught me a lot. But I never had that kind of that friendship. Plus, I don't like people like that. No, I'm joking. No, but I never really had that
Yeah.
that close. And so that's
Yeah.
something that I would absolutely, truly welcome. I will
definitely.
say this. I recently met this one young lady, absolutely brilliant. And I had this conversation with her, and I said, I have not met anyone like you. And I said, this is going to be really weird. And I'm not saying I've met some amazing people my age,
Definitely.
really great, different worlds though.
Yep.
We run in different worlds.
Yeah.
And I was like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
Because you don't exist.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I weirdly, I was like, can I be your friend? Like, how does this happen? I was like, how does, for real? I was
Yeah.
like, this is awkward. How do I be your friend?
Yeah.
Because I need this. And you will, yeah, I guess when you meet someone like that, you just simply know.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
yeah, I would love to kind of have that type of mentor
Yep.
and just friendship with people around my age.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So do you have any recommendations to the younger folks coming out of high school or college seeking mentorship? Because I've mentored probably about maybe 4 to 5 individuals, and they've always struggled with finding mentors. And for me, like you just said, I've been just so blessed, and that's why I thank God and the universe and whatever you believe, right?
Yeah.
And blessing me with the individuals that have come into my life and was able to stick around still to this day and have that, friendship. What do you recommend in finding mentors that are just seeking out or looking on LinkedIn or whatever, right? It's not easy to come by.
It isn't. So twofold, because I don't know who's going to hear this.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to answer this 2 ways.
Okay.
If you are a young professional, get connected.
Yeah.
Get connected with young professional groups. I actually did not get connected with young professional groups. And I wish I would have, because I probably would have had more of that connection.
Yeah.
And could have been even more of a mentor internally to some folks. And I did, and I was, but it was in a non-traditional sense. So get connected if you have any internal young professional groups with your company. There's groups such as the United League, under United Way, especially in our community, in the Des Moines metro community. There are organizations like that. However, what people typically do is they will find someone who is in their field.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I want a role similar to this.
Yep.
That's all cool.
Yeah.
Find someone else, because sometimes skill sets are transferable in between different organizations or different industries.
Yeah, definitely.
You want that.
Yeah.
The way that people think and they see things differently in a different industry is really key.
Yeah.
And I owe that a lot to my success as well, because my mentors were just not financial mentors. They were all over.
Yeah.
And my financial background is varied. So I needed that. Look for people who can challenge you elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it also expands your network.
Definitely.
Don't be afraid to network. That's the other thing. Walk into that room and no one knows that you're nervous. No one cares that you're nervous.
Yeah.
I was not a drinker. And so socially, I would go to when I go to networking events, I would go to the bartender. I'm like, okay, I don't drink. I need you to give me something that has a little bit of color, put some bubbly in it, and drop a couple ice cubes. And it's like, I don't care. I just wanted to kind of play the part.
Yeah, definitely.
I was nervous as ever. But I want to give you a really, really quick story.
Yeah.
I was talking to recently a 15-year-old kid, and he was at a local high school that has quite quite a bit of violence, a lot of turnover, and he just doesn't feel comfortable in that school. And he is Black and Hispanic, and it was like talking to my son, because my boys are Black and Hispanic, and so it was like me talking to my 16-year-old, and he's like, hey. I told him, I said, well, my son goes to this school, Valley School, this suburb school. And he's like, man, I would love to go to that school. He goes, I've seen so much. I grew up on this side of town. I've seen so much and I've experienced so much. And he has some friends that had been killed earlier on in life, right when they had turned teenagers. And he just was experiencing a more difficult life. And so we're talking. And I had an opportunity to just listen. And I just shut up.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about folks that age, they'll tell you what they want and what they need.
Yeah.
Most will.
Yeah.
And so he was like, man, I just wish and this is the first time anyone flat out said this to me. He said, I wish I had a dad. Wow. And I was just like, I was like, all right, hold it together, dude. Like, do not cry right now.
Wow.
To teach me and help me navigate. And that hit me so dang on hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, here's my number. I gave him my number.
Yeah.
And I said, you call me anytime you need anything. And it was one of those moments, man, where it was like, here's a 15-year-old who recognizes all the crap, all the ill things that are going on around him. And he wants mentorship. And so the only thing in that moment I could do is give him my number. But I encouraged him and I said, I need for you to hold on to everything you just said to me. I need you to hold on to that. And I need you, don't wait for anybody else to come find you. You go find somebody.
Yeah.
You go find a mentor. You go look for this group. You go to Big Brothers Big Sisters, Central Iowa. You go to some counselor in your school. They can help you. You go find someone, because if what you're telling me is true, and you really want that mentorship and you want to be better and you don't want anyone else around you dead, you don't want to end up this way, you want some better, go and get it.
Yes.
And I encourage everybody who is listening, if you want a mentor, if you want something different, stop waiting for folks and go and get it.
Yeah.
Period.
I think, oh my goodness, that's touching, because I don't think people realize how you need to put yourself out there. So like for me, I wasn't necessarily back when I was still growing in technology. No one knows everything, but it's intimidating to go to these vendor events, right? And people are all talking like all these, I don't want to say slang, but the verbiage for like, technology. There's so many acronyms, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I don't, these guys wearing suits and they're like, and I realized after peeling the onion, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, they're not as smart as I thought. Like once I really read the textbook and I really studied and did the technology, I mean, they're smart in their own way.
I know what you mean.
They're sales guys, right?
They're dumb,
right? But like the power of networking. What I mean by that is like there's no amount of credentials that you have, whether it's a master's degree or you have 10, 20 certifications. The power of networking and knowing somebody that's in that position that has the ability to give you either mentorship or that open door to give you that opportunity to work in corporate America or wherever you want to be is priceless. You know what I mean? And so like the way you said that, I was like, it's so important.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when you mentioned, you said when I said, hey, vulnerability is often looked at as weakness, and you're like, no, it should be looked at as a strength.
Definitely.
That's what that kid showed to me.
Definitely.
I didn't make him feel less than. I didn't make him. If anything, it hit me like, this kid is stronger than I ever was at that age. Like he literally just said, I need a father. I wish I had a father. I wish I had mentors. That's huge for a kid, especially nowadays. To mention that, I'm like, that took a lot of strength.
Definitely.
It took a lot of vulnerability and also a lot of, courage to be able to speak up.
For sure.
And, I think about what you were mentioning about in the corporate space and having to be able to peel back the different layers and really look at folks for who they are.
Exactly.
And that's really key, man. I never want to be in a space where I feel like I know it all.
Yeah.
I never
Yep.
want to be looked at as a person that knows it all.
Definitely.
I want to be looked at as a person that is always listening, a
Exactly.
person that's always hearing,
Yep.
a person that's always trying to find a way to grow and to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So when folks like you or like me can come up to that person that looks like they have it all together,
Yeah.
we're not intimidated.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something that kind of I think about, being able to know that you can also that you can hold your own.
Definitely.
That confidence
Yep.
is that's something that's key as well.
Yeah, you definitely can't fake confidence, right?
Nope.
Like when you walk into a room and you know you're confident in what you can bring to the table, whether it's technology, finance, real estate,
Yeah.
whatever your life experience is, you really can't fake that, especially when you're in a meeting with all other subject matter experts, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You
so
can't.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that pretty much wraps it up from my side.
Okay.
Yeah, so D'Angelo, I appreciate you so much for being on
Thank
the
you.
Inner Journey podcast. It's been great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. This has been a joy. Hopefully you don't get canceled after some of my comments. And
I don't think so.
no, I'm messing with you.
No,
shoot.
thank you so much
Thank you.
for spending time today. So
Appreciate you.
Yeah.